Please have a seat, and I'll just remind you you're still on the road. I'm going to ask you if you could pull your chair up closer to the microphone and pull the microphone closer to you. I think some people are having a lot of difficulty hearing what you were saying yesterday. Go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Weedy, we left off yesterday. We were talking about December 12th, and we were going through, you had the white car that Dustin used. On December 13th, do you remember where you were that day?
I left the house about 8 o'clock in the morning to go to work, and I was at my job tidying up with paperwork and things I needed to take care of. About 11:30, I left there and headed to Sioux City to finalize Christmas shopping.
And when did you learn about the Dustin being shot at the defendant's home?
I think it was close to 9 when my husband and I drove down there, and that's when we learned.
Ms. Weedy, later after the December 13th, were you interviewed by law enforcement officers?
Yes.
Was it more than one time?
Yeah, the same on the 13th?
No, after the 13th, were you interviewed?
Yes.
And more than one time?
Yes.
At some point, did you provide names to law enforcement officers?
Yes.
And why were you providing names?
They were just asking me of anybody possibly that Dustin could have had socialization with or a friend.
And in December of 2001, did you know Jeremy Collins?
Yes.
And how did you know him?
Jeremy was our Swans man.
Did you know him in a different capacity?
Yes. Jeremy and I became friends, and we actually had an affair.
Do you know about what time period that would have started?
I think he started coming to our house in September or October.
Of what year?
2001.
And do you know when the affair would have ended?
Our relationship ended the night Dustin died, or a.m. of the next morning.
At some point in time, did you provide Jeremy Collins' name to law enforcement?
Yes, I did.
Why did you do that?
Because I was just trying to help them, and I was throwing out any names possible that was any possibility of somebody that could have been involved.
Did law enforcement search your home?
Yes, they did.
And did they search the basement area where Dustin stayed?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Ms. Weedy, I'm showing you what has been marked as State's Exhibit number 90. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us what this is?
It was a little notebook that I found in the basement, and it had some of Dustin's writing in it.
And did you provide that to law enforcement?
Yes, I did.
And inside the little notebook, did you recognize the handwriting inside?
Yes, I did.
And was this some of the known handwriting you submitted to law enforcement?
Could you repeat that?
Sure. Was this known handwriting you knew was Dustin's handwriting?
Correct, I did.
The state would offer into evidence the photograph, State's Exhibit number 90.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's received.
Permission to publish?
May.
Ms. Weedy, do you know this little notebook that has composition on the outside? Do you know what Dustin used this for?
I don't know.
Turn on your microphone. what'd you say?
Objection speculation.
Objections overruled.
You may answer.
It was just probably a little tablet I had purchased at some time or another. Dustin ended up with it and wrote in it something, you know.
The notebook, the dimensions are listed here. The size, can you see that from where you're sitting?
Can I read it?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Was the notebook that we're showing in this picture, is it a smaller size than the pink spiral notebook?
Yeah, I think the notebook was like this big.
And if we look at the photograph, it'll have the dimensions listed on there, but you can't see it from where you're sitting.
No.
But it was smaller than State's Exhibit 13.
Yes.
No other questions, thank you.
Cross-examination, Ms. Benson.
Thank you, Your Honor. How are you this morning, Miss Weedy?
I'm doing okay.
And I'm having a hard time hearing you, so can you sit closer to the microphone for
Yes.
me, please? Thank you. First of all, I'm sorry about your loss regarding Dustin. I can't imagine being a parent and not having one of my children around. In a previous deposition, you indicated that you would do whatever it took to protect your children, correct?
Correct.
Do you still feel that way today?
Yes.
In reviewing some of the records regarding Dustin, there were mentions of him being very smart. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
But were there also some problems with Dustin as far as requirements for mental health issues?
Dustin had issues. We did some evaluations.
And my understanding is that you would have been the one, meaning you rather than your husband Brett, you would have been the one that would have taken Dustin to different appointments.
Correct?
And in fact, in 1998, you would have taken Dustin to see a doctor, White. Do you remember that?
What town was that one in?
That would be in Omaha at the University of Nebraska Medical Center.
Yes, I do.
And we discussed that report in your deposition, remember?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like that document to refresh your recollection?
That would be good.
May I approach Judge?
Yes.
I'm handing you Defendant's Exhibit A. I understand that was about 13 years ago, so if you'll just review that prior to me asking you any questions regarding that document.
Is there a particular page you would like me to refresh myself on this?
I'm going to ask you questions about this document. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to review it prior to me asking you any questions. May I ask you questions regarding this matter? Would you like to read the whole thing?
We can start.
Okay. In this appointment with Dr. White at the University of Nebraska, you were the one who would have taken Dustin to that appointment,
That's correct.
and he would have been approximately 17 years old at the time.
Correct.
And if you look at page 1, the chief complaint or reason why he was brought to Dr. White was because of his oppositional and disruptive behaviors. And you see where it says chief complaint?
Yes, I read that.
Okay. And would you agree that's why you brought him to see Dr. White on September 22nd of 1998?
I wouldn't word it like that, but yes, we were having issues.
If you'll turn to page 2, you see where it says pregnancy and birth history?
Yes.
And would have you been providing the information to Dr. White regarding Dustin's behavioral issues as he grew up?
Yes.
Okay. And does it indicate typically when he would play with children he was loud and overly aggressive and they would move on and leave him alone?
It says that in there.
And would have you...
I didn't read it, but if it's in here, I would have said that at the time.
And do you see the next paragraph where it says past psychiatric history?
Yes.
And it says his history includes violence at times, correct?
It does say that.
Next page is page 3 under mental status examination. Do you see that section?
Yes.
The last full sentence says there was a period over time over this summer when he threatened, meaning Dustin threatened to use a gun in the home. However, he did not give the nature of his intent. Do you see that?
I do.
Did you report that? I'm sorry, to the doctor, to Dr. White?
I probably reported the use of a gun, but I didn't specify a BB gun.
Okay. On page 5 of this document, the tops, tell me when you're there.
Okay.
And there's numbers at the bottom of the page, Ms. Weedy.
Yes.
Okay. Under behavioral concomitants, and I'll spell that CONCOMITANTS of presenting illness, does the last line indicate he's made subtle threats in the past per parental report?
It does say that, and I'm not for sure what it's referring to.
Okay. Was your husband Brett Weedy at this appointment in 1998?
I don't understand the question.
Fair enough. If you don't understand one of my questions, ask me to repeat it or rephrase it. My understanding is you've already testified that you took Dustin Weedy to Dr. White at the University of Nebraska.
Correct.
And my question to you is, was your husband along?
No.
So if it indicates in here that he, meaning Dustin, made subtle threats in the past per the parental report, Dr. White would have received that information from you.
Correct.
And what threats was Dustin making to you or your family in 1998?
I don't have any idea which possible. I don't know.
Okay. Defendant's Exhibit A is a 6-page document, correct?
Correct.
And this has to do with your son's mental health diagnosis in 1998, correct?
Correct.
Judge, at this time I would offer Defendant's Exhibit A.
May I see it a minute, Your Honor?
Oh, I'm sorry. No objection, Your Honor.
Defendant's A is received.
You testified yesterday on direct examination that Dustin was working. He had held previous jobs at Crossroads Restaurant, I believe, and he had worked at a factory-type employment, correct?
He was at an ethanol plant and a restaurant.
Okay. And Dustin wasn't working the months prior to this shooting, correct?
He lost his job like 3 weeks before he died.
Okay. And you were present when Dustin filled out a vocational rehabilitation application, weren't you?
I might have been, I don't recall.
If I provided you the document, would that refresh your recollection?
Maybe.
I'm handing you Defendant's Exhibit B. Does that document appear to be, are you familiar with that document?
I've seen it before, yeah.
And would you agree that Defendant's Exhibit B is an Iowa Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services Health Assessment Questionnaire?
Yes.
And who filled out this document? Would have that been you or Dustin?
It's my writing.
And is this a 2-page document?
Yes.
Would you turn to this? Well, did you fill out the first page?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I know
can't
this
seem
isn't
to-
easy for you, but would you please talk a little bit louder? If you'll turn on to the second page, is it are there 7 numbered paragraphs?
Yes.
And in those numbered paragraphs, you see number 5, which says work tolerance.
Yes.
And did you write under work tolerance anger management problems?
I did.
And why did you write anger management problems under paragraph 5?
I don't know. I must have been flustered with stuff at the time dealing. I don't know.
Okay. But this is your handwriting, Ms.
It
Reed?
is.
Okay. Judge, at this time I would offer Defendant's Exhibit B.
No objection, Your Honor.
It is received.
And may I publish it for the jury, Judge?
Yes.
Make the second reading so just.
And that's your handwriting.
It is.
And Judge, may I publish what we discussed on Defendant's Exhibit A at this time?
I don't know. I'm sorry, you're going to have to tell me, what did you discuss?
I asked her questions regarding Dr. White's report, and I forgot to do that before I went to Exhibit B, so may I do that at this time?
You may do it now.
Thank you, Judge. Can you see that?
I can't read it.
But you looked at it before?
A little bit, yep.
Can you ask the jury if they can read it from where they're at? I don't want
Is
to.
there any problem with anybody reading that? You can't see it.
May I just publish it to the jury?
Sure.
And may I also publish B to the jury, so I'm not sure if they can see it or not.
Yes.
to Dustin's death, who was his treating provider for mental health issues?
I don't know.
Would have it been a Dr. Leotode?
I know he's seen him before.
Okay. And for the record, Jody, Leotode is Liautaud, comma, D period, O period. Would have Dustin been treated by Dr. Leotode approximately 2 months prior to his death?
He could have been.
Would reviewing Dr. Leotode's record refresh your recollection regarding that matter, Ms.
Sure.
May I approach Judge?
May.
I'm handing you what's been identified as Defendant's Exhibit C. Do you recognize that document?
Not really. I haven't seen it for a long time.
I'm sorry.
I said not really because I haven't seen it for a long time.
Okay. Do you want to just take a minute and look at that?
Please.
Thank you. Ms. Weedy, I showed you this document on September 12th when I took your deposition, correct?
Yes.
Is it okay if I just direct you to certain spots
Sure.
in this? And if you want time to read it when I direct that to you, just stop me and I'll let you do that, all right?
Okay.
Is Defendant's Exhibit C a 4-page document?
Yes.
And is the caption on the top of it Carroll Psychiatry Family Counseling Center?
Yes.
And it's a Dr. Leotode?
Yes.
And the date of the visit would be September 24th of 2001?
Correct.
And that would have been approximately 2 months prior to the shooting?
Correct.
How long had Dustin been seeing Dr. Leotode prior to September of 2001?
I believe this was a one-time visit.
Okay. Will you turn to page 2 of the, were you present for this meeting between your son Dustin and Dr. Leotode?
I'm not for sure if I was in the room or if I just took him there.
On page 2 of that document, if you see where it says family history,
Yes.
does it indicate that Ms. Weedy reports? Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Would that refresh your recollection on whether you were there in December of 2001 with Dustin?
I know I was there. I don't recall being involved in the interview. I don't know.
Okay. Then the bottom section on page 2 indicates mental status examination.
May I read that?
Of course. Dustin was punching holes in the walls, wasn't he?
He punched one hole in the wall when his dad was going to take his puppy away.
And you were concerned that Dustin had suicidal ideation or he had been contemplating suicide, correct?
One time he brought a magazine to me and said he was depressed.
And that's one of the reasons why you wanted to get him help?
Of course.
Okay, I'm just making sure. You have 2 daughters as well, don't you?
Yes, I do.
And what are their names?
Ashley and Brianna.
And in relation to Dustin, how much Are they older or younger?
They're younger.
And Ashley's the oldest daughter.
Correct.
And how old is she today?
24.
So she would have been, what, about 2 years younger than Dustin?
She was 5.5 years younger.
I'm sorry, you can see my math skills. And Brianna, how much younger was she?
Like 8.
And you were afraid to leave your daughters alone with Dustin prior to the death, weren't you?
I wasn't afraid to leave them alone. I didn't like to leave my children alone.
Do you remember having an interview with Special Agent Trent Veleta?
Yes, I do.
Let me do it for the court reporter, Vileta, on December 26th of 2008.
I vaguely remember it.
And then we talked about that in your September 12th, 2011 deposition, correct?
Correct.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
And counsel, I'm on page 22. Okay. Judge, at this time I would offer Defendant's Exhibit C.
Just so it's clear, I believe the defense counsel said a 4-page document. I have a 3. Am I missing a page? No objection, Your Honor.
Proceed.
I had a few additional questions regarding C. Judge, at this time I would offer Defendant's Exhibit C.
I'm sorry. No objection.
That's what I thought. I thought an offer had been received already. Are you mistaken?
And Ms. Weedy, was Dr. Leotode, was he able to provide a diagnosis regarding Dustin?
I don't know what that would have been.
Okay. Were there concerns regarding auditory hallucinations at that time involving your son Dustin?
Was that just in the report you just gave me?
Well, if you'll turn to page 3 of that document.
Which section?
The top sentence, it indicates regarding psychotic symptoms, there's a concern with possibility of auditory hallucinations.
Yes, it says that.
And we talked in your deposition about the fact that Dustin did talk to himself, correct?
Dustin did talk to himself, yes.
May I publish this with the jury?
Yes.
I'm not sure if they'll be able to read it, so I may hand it to them, but I'd like to at least for now put it on the door visualizer. And so your opinion was that your son was having some type of auditory hallucinations if he's talking to himself, and the treating provider would have indicated that?
I didn't feel that that was a concern the doctor had.
Okay. But you'd agree it's in this report?
Yes, I would.
And I asked you a question regarding the diagnosis.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you just ask a question?
Oh, yes. I asked you a question regarding what Dr. Leotode's diagnosis was of Dustin. You remember me asking that question?
In depositions? Right now?
Right now.
Yes.
Okay. And would you agree that the diagnosis made on defendant's exhibit C is major depressive disorder, severe with concerns for mood, congruent, psychotic features, auditory hallucinations, and suicide attempt by history.
If that's what the report says, that's correct.
And there were parent-child relationship problems, attention deficit disorder, and oppositional defiant disorder.
That's what the report says.
Do you need to take a break now?
No.
May I publish this to the jury?
Judge, take a few minutes. Please. Let's be in recess for about 10 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I apologize for the delay. There were a few matters I needed to take up with the attorneys as well, and that took a little bit more time than we anticipated. At any rate, Mr. Vance, are you ready to proceed?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Weedy, before the break, I had asked you if you were ever concerned that you didn't want to leave your daughters alone with Dustin. Do you remember that question?
Yes.
And can we proceed?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember your deposition being taken on September 12th of 2011?
Who was I visiting with?
We would have had a discussion. We would have taken your deposition.
Yes.
And previously, you had been interviewed by Special Agent Velita,
Yes.
and that would have been on December 26th of 2008.
Correct.
And we're on page 22, line 12.
Thank you.
And if it's okay, I'll read the question, and if you'll read the answer. And I'm referring to Mr. Special Agent Velita's report. And it said, I didn't like my son left alone with my daughters. And I asked you if you see that, and your answer was?
Yes.
Did you make that statement?
Yes, I did.
And then we go down to line 2780, and my question is, am I reading this correctly? He was hurting them. Who was he?
He would have been Dustin.
And I mean, I took Ashley, this is you, correct?
Correct.
I took Ashley to the doctor once because he grabbed her and threw her across the room and ripped her wrist. You know, did you say that to Special Agent Velita? And your answer was?
I must have.
May I publish this to the jury, Judge?
Yes.
You asked the jury if they can see that. I assume they can.
I'm sorry. Can the jurors in the back read that at all? Anybody having trouble? No. You cannot read it. Okay. You didn't see those either? Oh, yes. Mr. Vance, you were passing some of those exhibits
I
around.
think it's defendant's exhibit C on top.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did somebody not get that?
It's on top there.
think they said they could not read it.
All right. May I try one more time, Judge?
Certainly.
And would you ask them if they can read it? I can see it, but I don't want to make any assumptions.
Does any juror have difficulty seeing that now on the album? Okay.
And Judge, would the court inquire of the jurors whether they were able to see Defendant's Exhibit B?
I can't remember what B was offhand.
It would have been this vocational rehabilitation questionnaire that Ms. Weedy would have filled out on behalf of her son.
That was not passed around.
I believe A and B were, Your Honor, and I believe they were handed to defense counsel.
Did anybody not see B when we took out?
And I do think it went around, but when they indicated they couldn't see it on the door visualizer, I just wanted to make sure that they had an opportunity to see it.
Okay. Then everybody's on.
And did Dustin ever corner you?
Pardon me?
Did Dustin ever corner you or threaten you prior to his death?
There was one time that Dustin and I was having an argument. I think it was over. He took my car keys and he kind of cornered me, yeah. And I had just injured my back and had been laid up for about 5 days. And so I didn't want to struggle with him.
Okay. But he did corner you, correct?
Kind of.
Well, either he...
I can say yes.
Okay. And you indicated to the mental health providers, including both Dr. White and Dr. Leotold, that Dustin had made threats to you and your family in the past. We talked about that earlier, correct?
I'm not for sure how to answer that question.
We read into the record issues about where there were threats that Dustin was making to you and your family.
The only threat was the time he was with me when I had my back hurt.
Okay.
And his dad and his sister.
You talked about... I'm not going to have you go through all of these, but these would be previous photographs that were provided of the crime scene after the shooting. And my question to you is, did you have previous counsel in 2004 that would have requested the crime scene photographs regarding the shooting on December 13th of 2001?
My attorney would have, yes.
Okay. And were those photographs provided to you?
No, they were not.
Your attorney obtained these crime scene photographs, but he never provided them to you?
He honestly didn't.
Okay. You spoke in your direct examination of a gentleman by the name of Jeremy Collins.
Yes.
And Jeremy Collins, you had an affair with him, I think you indicated, starting in either October or November of 2001.
September, October, yes.
And Jeremy Collins was the Schwann's man.
Correct.
He drove an extended cab pickup truck.
I don't recall it being an extended cab.
Well, did you drive around in that vehicle?
I did.
Okay. And your testimony today is you don't remember whether it was an extended cab pickup truck or not?
I've always stated I don't recall it being an extended cab.
Do you know what an extended cab pickup truck is?
Yes, I do.
You knew that Dustin Weedy had been paintballing with Tracy Richter's now former husband, Michael Roberts?
Yes.
And in fact, Michael was sort of witnessing to Dustin, correct?
That's what he said.
Okay. And they went paintballing, and they also went shooting at, they did target practice shooting. Were you aware of that?
I'm pretty sure they never did target practice shooting.
But they did do paintball exercises?
Probably 2 occasions.
And in November of 2001, so approximately a month prior to the shooting, you would have met Jeremy Collins at a hotel in West Des Moines, Iowa, correct?
I don't recall the date, but I did meet him.
Okay. And would have that been in Des Moines in November of 2001?
It could have been.
Well, what's your best guess?
10 years ago, I don't know.
You testified on direct examination that on December 13th you left the house, I think, at approximately 8 a.m.,
Correct.
and that you would have gone to Sioux City, Iowa in the afternoon to do Christmas shopping.
Correct.
And approximately how long does it take to drive from early Iowa to Sioux City?
An hour and 15 minutes.
And you testified in your deposition that you had numerous calls, telephone calls between yourself and Jeremy Collins on that day prior to the shooting, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so obviously Jeremy knew your telephone number.
Correct.
And if you're having an affair with him at that time, you don't want to disclose this to your husband at the time, Brett Weedy, do you?
I did not.
Okay. Are you aware that Jeremy Collins called your home at 4:34 p.m. on December 13th of 2001?
I was told there was a phone record there, but he knew I was in Sioux City.
Okay. But that was determined by Special Agent Mosier by looking at your caller ID.
Correct. And I think he probably dialed the wrong number, and that's all I can answer to that.
You had seen prior to December 13th of 2001, you had seen on at least one occasion where Jeremy Collins had bloodied hands or knuckles, correct?
Correct.
And on December 13th of 2001, you would have had 2 telephone conversations with Mr. Collins after the shooting occurred.
Correct.
And he indicated that he would be at the funeral when that occurred.
He did.
And that was the last time that you talked to him for at least a month after the shooting, correct?
Correct.
And you thought it was suspicious that he broke up with you immediately after Dustin's death.
I did.
And in reviewing the government's discovery, you would have spoken to law enforcement as far as interviews on December 14th of 2001.
Correct.
December 16th of 2001.
Correct.
December 18th of 2001.
Correct.
December 20th of 2001. No, I'm sorry,
Correct.
excuse me, the 29th of 2001.
Of December?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And then December 30th of 2001.
Probably.
And then it appears to me in reviewing the records that you would have talked to Special Agent Mosier on March 28th of 2002.
I did have an interview with him.
And then you would have spoke to Special Agent Velita on December 26th of 2008.
Correct.
And would you agree that the only reference that you make in all of those police interviews about Jeremy Collins would be to Dennis Sesford on December 30th of 2001?
I believe I mentioned him more than that.
And you may have. I don't know, I wasn't there, but would you agree with me that in your deposition we went through those police reports or law enforcement reports And the only one that made mention of Jeremy Collins would be the December 30th of 2001 interview.
That could be correct.
Okay. And in fact, when you talked to Special Agent Velita on December 26th of 2008, that was a 97-page interview, correct? It took about 2.5, 3 hours?
Correct.
And at that time, you didn't make any reference to Jeremy Collins, correct?
I don't believe that's correct. I don't know. It wasn't 97 pages long. I'm pretty sure I mentioned him.
And I can show you the report if you would like.
That's okay.
And you had an opportunity to look through that report at the time of your deposition on December 12th of 2011, and we determined that you didn't make reference, at least during the transcribed part of that interview, correct?
Correct.
And on December 18th of 2001, so to put it in context, 5 days after the shooting, Dennis Sessford would have come to your house to retrieve documents from Dustin, correct?
Correct.
And in that there were 7 sheets of paper that were provided.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. And there were 2 Post-it notes.
Correct.
And there were there was the black notebook, and you provided all of those to Mr. Sessford at that time.
I don't remember exactly when, but if that's what the record says, yes.
And that's fair. Can we agree that you would have provided those items after looking through Dustin's bedroom in the basement?
Yes.
And if it was 5 days or 10 days after, you agree that that's what you would have provided to them?
Correct.
And the Post-it notes, one of those Post-it notes indicated money in November.
Correct.
And that was in Dustin's handwriting?
Yes, it was.
And the other Post-it note had a telephone number on it, correct?
Correct.
And that telephone number would have been to the West Des Moines hotel that you and Jeremy Collins would have stayed at in November of 2001, correct?
Jeremy reserved that room. I had other accommodations, but that is his room, correct?
Okay, that's his room, and that's a place that you would have spent time with Jeremy Collins at that hotel in November of 2001?
We were maybe there 10 minutes. That was just his room. He stayed there. We were at a restaurant.
Ms. Sweetie, I want to ask you a follow-up question regarding this crime scene photographs, and I don't intend to show you those today. But I asked you if your lawyer had provided you with copies of the crime scene photographs, and you said no, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But it's a fact that you saw them after your attorney received them around 2004, isn't that correct?
The only time I seen any of the crime scene pictures was when I was in my attorney's office. He left a stack on the desk.
Okay.
And I seen a couple of pictures of my son shot, was all I seen.
And I know this is hard for you. I don't have any interest in showing you photographs regarding your son being shot. But I want to make sure that when the stack of photographs was provided to you, that what the government is indicating is the pink journal, you would have seen that the photographs of the pink journal on the front seat of the white Pontiac.
I believe the first time I seen these pictures was this last week. I've never seen these. Somebody just showed them to me. I never seen them when I was in any other time.
Well, my understanding is your previous lawyer would have requested the crime scene photographs.
Correct.
And I wasn't there, but I assume that all of the photographs were provided to you at that time.
I did not receive any. They didn't show me any. They left him on a table by accident. He got called out of the room. I picked up a stack, and I went through about 5 to 7 pictures of my son.
And I'm sure that was difficult, but you're telling me you didn't look through the entire stack?
No, I didn't. When I got to the one where he was shot in the face, I threw him across the table.
So the first time that you've ever seen these photographs under oath is a few weeks ago?
Probably within the last 2 days. I don't even remember. I just seen these. I've never had them shown to me. I just seen them.
And who showed them to you?
I honestly can't remember.
Okay. You gave items to the police, but the police gave you items back that were found in the vehicle, correct?
I don't remember.
This is a photograph, and let me be more clear. I'm sorry, excuse me. States Exhibit 64. Would that be a photograph of the trunk of the Pontiac that Dustin was driving?
It totally looks like our belongings, yes.
And do you have a recollection? You see there's a black bag in that trunk?
2 of them, yes.
And was the black bag, when you received that back, wasn't that packed with Dustin's clothes?
I honestly don't remember. I don't remember receiving this back. I don't remember.
Okay. But you have a recollection of receiving the bags back or not?
No, I do not.
And my question was, I wasn't sure if you remember what items were in there or if you received the black bag, but your testimony is neat.
I don't at all remember any of that.
You indicated to law enforcement, or at least you told me in your deposition, that you thought that Jeremy Collins was distracting you so that Tracy could lure Dustin into her house. Do you remember testifying to that?
Yes, I do.
And you'd also agree that when you were interviewed by Trent Veleta in December of 2008, you specifically told him that you didn't believe that Tracy Richter had shot Dustin. Do you remember saying that?
I didn't believe it in the beginning.
Well, this December of 2008, you would agree, is 7 years after the shooting.
Yes, I told Trent that then too.
And did you ever, in a subsequent proceeding, were you ever asked about the second intruder?
Can you repeat that, please?
Of course. In any prior proceedings, have you ever been asked about the second intruder?
Like, did the police ask me about the second intruder?
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm handing you what has been identified as interrogatory number 8. Have you ever seen this document?
Yes, I have.
And there was a prior proceeding where you were asked a specific question if you knew, and you signed at what was called a verification page, which means it's under oath. And you would have done that in 2004. Do you have a recollection of doing that?
No.
You don't recall signing the verification page?
No.
Do you remember being asked interrogatory number 8? Or a better question is, do you remember providing an answer to interrogatory number 8?
I remember getting this packet of papers, and I filled this out in handwriting, and I did answer it.
Okay. And my question to... You're fine. If you need to take a break, that's fine. Okay. My question to you is, this jury's heard about Jeremy Collins, and you were suspicious of him because he broke up with you or quit talking to you on the evening of Dustin's shooting. And when you were asked under oath regarding these interrogatories, it asked specifically for who you believed was the second intruder.
I never believed Jeremy was a second intruder, so I did not put his name down.
Okay. Would you please read to the jury what your answer was?
Unknown discovery continues. This answer may be supplemented.
Judge, may I publish this to the jury?
Let me look at it again, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
May we approach? Excuse me.
Thank you, Your Honor. And am I reading this correctly, Ms. Weedy? Plaintiff's petition, paragraph 5, refers to an unknown individual, and in plaintiff's petition, paragraph 7, states an unknown individual in a black leather jacket. Please identify who Dustin Weedy's estate or the state's representative.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can you slow down?
I'm sorry, yes, ma'am. I apologize. Do you want me to start over? Yes, ma'am. Please identify who Dustin Weedy's estate or the estate's representative believes unknown individual is, including name, name, age, address, telephone number, and would you read your answer, please?
I can't read that.
I'm sorry.
Unknown discovery continues. This answer may be supplemented.
And to your knowledge, was the interrogatory answer to number 8, was that ever supplemented?
I have no idea.
And do you know a gentleman by the name of John Pittman III?
Yes, I do.
And who is that?
Tracy's ex-husband.
And in your deposition, I asked you the first time that you would have talked to John Pittman, Tracy Richter's ex-husband, your answer was a couple months after Dustin was buried because I always talked to his parents. Did you make that statement?
Yes, I did.
So under oath, did you talk to John Pittman III prior to Dustin's death?
No, I did not.
You may.
Remember we were talking about interrogatory number 8. Was there also an interrogatory number 20?
Yes. Yes.
And did you verify, in other words, did you under sworn oath state that the answer to this interrogatory was honest and your best knowledge?
Yes, it was.
And I'm going to read the interrogatory answer, and I'd ask that you simply read the highlighted portion when I'm done. Is that all right?
Yes.
Thank you. Interrogatory number 20, regarding the executor of the Dustin Weedy estate, Mona Weedy, please identify any and all contact that Mona, that's you, correct?
Correct.
Or her representative has had with Tracy Roberts' ex-husband, John Pittman, and or Lisa Pittman, and or anyone acting on John Pittman's behalf from February 1996 to present, including, and then it asks for the reason for the contact. Do you see that?
Yes.
Would you please, in your supplemental answer, just please read the highlighted portion?
I first spoke with John Pittman, as I already answered before Dustin died, and there is an error in punctuation.
Okay. And so under oath, with the help of an attorney, at least the first sentence of this document says that you talked to John Pittman III prior to Dustin Weedy's death.
That was stated that, as I told you before, period.
Okay, and I'm just
So
asking.
it's not, I talked to John before, as I told you before, I talked to John. It's not proper. That's wrong.
Ma'am, I'm not trying to argue with you regarding punctuation, but does it say I first spoke with John, as I already answered, before Dustin died? Is that what your interrogatory answer said?
That's what it says, but it's not correct.
And I think you said in that interview with Special Agent Villita 7 years after the shooting that it was your opinion that Tracy didn't shoot Dustin. That was your opinion at that time.
I'm going to object. This has been asked and answered, and it calls for speculation anyway.
Okay.
You don't have any direct proof that Dustin had permission to be in the Roberts residence on December 13th before he was shot, do you?
The only proof I have is he was invited to the house.
And Dustin wasn't working at the time,
No, he was not.
and Michael Roberts had Dustin doing odd jobs over at Zelix, which is next door to the Roberts residence, correct?
No, I do not believe that's correct. Dustin didn't do odd jobs for Michael.
Well, you had done some photocopying for Michael, correct?
No, I never made any copies for Michael.
Did you do some work at Zealots?
Yes, I worked on the computer.
And you wanted your son to get a job?
I never asked them to give him a job.
As you're sitting here, though, you don't have any firsthand knowledge that Dustin had permission to be in the Roberts residence on December 13th of 2001, do you?
If you mean was I with him, no, I was not.
And you don't have any evidence to show that Dustin wasn't the one who assaulted Tracy Richter on December 13th, 2001, do you?
Repeat that, please.
Sure. It was a poorly asked question. You'd agree you don't have any firsthand knowledge that Tracy was the one who was the aggressor in the December 13th assault, correct?
I wasn't there, so I have no knowledge.
That's good.
Any regret?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Go ahead.
Ms. Weedy, in November of 2001, was Dustin receiving SSI payments?
In December?
In November.
Yes, he was.
And how much was he getting per month for SSI?
3.
I can answer both, Your Honor. They want to make a reference that he doesn't have a job at the time. They want to make a reference as opposed to it is to money in November. The state believes that we can show that Dustin was receiving money in November and it was coming from SSI and the amount.
Yes.
Ms. Weedy, in November of 2001, was your son, Dustin Weedy, receiving SSI payments?
Yes, he was.
And about how much a month?
$300.09.
And that would have been also, he would have received a payment in December as well of 2001?
Yes, we did.
You were asked about this interrogatory and the answer, and you said something about the punctuation. Is that
Correct.
Did you ever talk to Dr. John Pittman III, the defendant's ex-husband, at any time prior to Dustin's death?
No, I did not.
May I approach?
Yes.
You were asked about the crime scene photographs. Your attorney in 2004 had a copy of the crime scene photographs. Do you remember that? You remember being asked that question?
By the defense?
Yes.
Correct, yes.
To your knowledge, did your attorney in 2004 ever have the actual pink spiral notebook and the contents?
Objection, Your Honor, leading and calls for speculation.
No, objections overruled.
You may answer.
No, he did not.
Prior to the defendant being charged in this case, had you ever seen the contents, the actual writing beside the one page that you were showing in the pink spiral notebook?
Did I see any of it prior to?
That was a bad question.
Thank you.
Beside the one page that a copy of the one page was shown to you on December 18th, beside that page, prior to the defendant being charged with this crime, had you ever actually been able to look at the contents of the pink spiral notebook?
No, I was not.
Ms. Weedy, did Dustin wear glasses?
Yes, he did.
And could he, to your knowledge, could he see very well without his glasses?
Judge, I am going to check this from the outside of this photo. Cross-examination.
And Your Honor, I believe in some of the mental health records there is a reference to glasses in there as well.
All right, objections overruled.
You may answer.
How well could he see without his glasses?
Correct.
I don't think very well because he never took them off.
Thank you. No other questions?
Regross.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Weedy, Dustin began receiving Social Security disability benefits in November of 2001, correct?
I don't remember exactly when it started, but I know he had it in 2001 in November.
And you were the one who would have been the one who received the check, and then you would give Dustin $10 at a time.
I received less than what he needed at a time.
$10 at a time?
It was whatever the situation was, what he needed it for.
At the time of the shooting, when you received his wallet, he had approximately $80 in his pocket. You were surprised about that amount of money.
I didn't get his wallet, we just got $80 of cash.
And you indicated on redirect that you found out that Dustin Weedy's glasses weren't on at the time that you learned he was dead, correct?
At the funeral home, they told us they were in his pocket.
And Michael Roberts knew that information prior to you telling him that, didn't he?
Yes, I believe that was correct.
And that caused you and Brett Weedy concern.
Correct.
I want to go back to the Post-it notes for a minute. When you provided those to law enforcement on December 18th of 2001, we had some questions about that, and you indicated that Jeremy had paid for the hotel in West Des Moines. I'm just giving you a point of reference. So, you remember that line of question?
I don't remember that, but it was Jeremy's room. It wasn't ours.
You made that clear. But after that, I asked you a question, and it's in reference to the Post-it note that says money in November. Did that cause you concern? And was your answer, yeah, it was weird? I'm like, well, who's giving who money in November? It was November, not December. I'm not for sure what you just said. Did you make that statement?
I didn't understand any of it.
Yes.
And counsel, I'm on page 82, line,
I would like to ask who I'm having an interview with.
this would be me on September 12th of 2011.
Okay.
All right? And is this your deposition?
Yes.
It says Ramona.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure. And I'm going to read line 9 or the question, and then if you'll read the answer. And the reference to the Post-it note that says money in November, did that cause you, meaning you, Ms. Weedy, concern? And would you read the answer?
My answer is yeah, it was weird. I'm like, well, who's giving who money in November? It was November, not December. I'm not for sure what you just said.
Okay, but that was your response on...
I guess.
So you're sure that you would have provided law enforcement on the day that they came over, on December 18th of 2001, you would have provided them that Post-it notes, the 7 pieces of paper, and also the black note?
Correct.
Judge, I have no further questions.
Any regret?
No, Your Honor.
You may step down. Thank you very much, ma'am.